Hello, my lovely ladies. Welcome back to my channel. Today, ang atong tabian, ang atong i-discuss is about Pinay history. This is actually very interesting, ladies. Kay, again, kani siya nga history rarely or never been discussed in public schools. Maybe in university, basin sa college when you study specific kanang kurso, then if you go into history or politics or something, maybe then you will talk about this kind of kanang topics like the pre-colonial era, the Spanish era, the American era, like that. Maybe if you study law, maybe not maybe, I think, I'm not so sure because, I'm not a lawyer. I believe nga then you will study history if you study law. Pero kasagaran nato kung ang ato ang kurso is dili related sa law or not necessarily covering a lot of history sa Pilipinas and the world, for sure wala mo kahibalo ani atong tabian karon. O kung gikan man gani kag public schools, high school graduate ra ka or ang imong kurso is like I said dili, especially mag-abogado ka or anything nga kurso nga kailangan nimo studyhan ng history sa Pilipinas, then wala jud ka kahibalo ani atong tabian karon. Kani nga atong tabian karon, importante kay ni nga makasabot ta. Importante kaayo ni nga ato ning tugkaron og sabton. Kay tungod, this is one of our strongest foundation, ladies, para makasabot ta o para makahibaluta o para mas mukusog pa, mas mangisog pa ang atuang kaugalingon to fight for our right as of this present, as of this very moment. Kay kung wala mo kahibalo, ladies, right now we are living in a patriarchy system. Og ang mga kababaihan sa tibuok kalibutan are very oppressed, are very limited, are very kanang gigunitan sa liog, gi-control para dili makatingog. Okay, ladies? So it's very important that we understand this, because before this people, for me, this is like the Spanish era. During this time is really the history that I hate the most, especially sa tuang mga Pilipina. Of course, before the Spanish era, there were other kind of kanang history. Like for example, katong sa Mesopotamia, katong sa tawag ato nila, katong mga sa part sa Turkey, itong mga inana, katong mga lost kanang cities, katong mga Babylon, mga inana. Before na siya, of course, we have that history. Pero kana manggod na history is layo na jud kaayo. So we will not go into that. But of course, kung interesado ka sa history like me, then go ahead and read those kanang layo na jud nga mga history, like katong first civilization sa una, first city sa una, which is sa katong ang first city sa una or ang first civilization sa una was in Iraq, around that area, Iraq, Iran, diha nga area before, or katong mga lost cities, katong mga Babylon, mga inana. Kung interesado ka, then go ahead and research those and read those those kind of history is also very interesting. Pero we will not go that far because maybe you are not so much into history, you just want to understand a bit kay para, like I said, makasabot ka, para mas mo laom pa, mas mo dukot pa, mas mo ana pa jud ang imuhang foundation to why we women should really start voicing out our concern, our unhappiness, our anger, everything. Kailangan mapagawas na nato, kailangan masyagit na nato sa kalibutan ang ato ang frustration. Because for so long, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, women has always been so oppressed and controlled by men. Okay? So, dirita, focus na lang ta dinhi sa quiet recent nga history, which is also what matters to us Filipino the most, okay, which is the pre-colonial era, which is katong before naabot ang mga Espanyol sa atoang bansa. And then during the Spanish era, which is kanang katong during a time nga sila'y nagpadagan, sila'y naghari-hari, sila'y nisakop, sila'y nagpaantos natong mga Pilipino, natong mga Pilipina sa Pilipinas. Now ladies, ako dili lang kay ako daghan nato nga naatay dugong Espanyol. And kasagaran nato, we are so proud to have this blood. We are so proud na natagakanta gamay ani nga dugo sa Espanyol because it makes us look different, diba? Kay of course, during this time man good, we were brainwashed in a way nga looking the pure Filipino, like the Eta, the having that beautiful color that we have and having those beautiful black curly hair that we had was ugly. So we got brainwashed during this time. And now, nadani na to hangtod karon sa karon nga panahon nga kung lagom ka, bati kag naong. Kung puti ka, gwapa ka. 'Di ba? So, okay, hold on there. Like I said, usa ko ani nga natagakan kung pila ka patak ng dugo sa Spanish because on my mom's side has a few history of Spanish. So parang lula sa side sa akong mama was na minyo or na minyo ba murag na minyo man yata or na mabdusan ba sa usa ka Espanyol. But now I know the history of this time, how they tortured us women, how they raped women, how they killed children, how they took advantage of our wealth and everything. I'm not proud of it anymore. I'm not proud nga na ako'y dugong banyaga. And many of us Filipinos can relate this because very few na lang jud nato rong mga Pilipino ang pure nga Pilipina. Pure nga Pilipino. Kay kasaganan na to karon nasagulan na tag Espanyol, nasagulan na tag American, German, nasagulan na tag Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, unsa pa lang laing mga dugo diha Australian, British, unsa pa na laing dugo nato diha Indian nga nasagulan ta. So very few na lang jud nato karon ang makaingon nga yes, I'm proud dugong Pilipino. Because kasagaran nato, we are already so mixed up. That's why Filipino people or the Filipinas are one of the most beautiful ladies in the world because of that we are so mixed up. But of course, before we kanang mihimutang proud kay ana because of course, we have to move on from this era man. Because karon man gud makasabot ka kung giunsa ta pagpaantos, giunsa ta pagbaboy sa mga Espanyol during ani nga time. Kung makasabot pa lang mo, kung makita pa lang mo, grabe ang inyong kalagot sa mga Spanish, especially sa mga Spanish. Ladies, I love history so much and I traveled quite well in Europe and I traveled 3 summers, like 75 to 80 days, 3 summers in South America. And actually, tulo na lang ka country sa South America ang wala na ko naadtoy. And when I was traveling in Europe, the history that I learned nga gikan sa mga European is very different sa history nga ako nakatunan when I traveled in South America. Kay kung ari man ka sa Europe, ang ilahang history when they go to kanang conquer other countries, because back then they were one of the biggest conquistador. So, they are the hero, they are the ones that kanang introduce the best, and they are the ones that introduce the best religion, the Catholicism, all that. They are the hero, they are the best of the best. But when you go mangod to other countries like South America and in the Philippines, when we look at mangod our history, it's a completely different history. Because of course, ladies, this is for you to know, and this is actually very good to put in your brain. Ang history is always written by the winners. This is not written by the losers, or not necessarily the truth is written. No, it is written kung kinsa to'y nakadaog. So of course, back then, ang mga Spanish man ang nakadaog. So of course, they are the hero and the hero of everything. Because if you go to South America, especially like Peru, Peru has a very rich, and like Peru and Mexico, like that, they have very rich kanang history, ilahang kaugalingong history ha. But the Spaniards back then, they destroyed a lot of this. They took a lot of artifacts and gold and everything from them. And same as what they did to us in the Philippines. They destroyed, they destroyed a lot of stuff. They took a lot of kanang wealth from us. They raped women, they killed children, ilahang gisunog atong mga balay. It was very bad era. It was very bad. But okay, let's move on, ladies. So, during the Spanish era, it was during 1521 to 1898. So, the first time na ang mga Spanish na abot sa Pilipinas, it was around this time, 1521. And then we have the American era from 1898 to 1946. And then after man gud aning American era, until now, karon man gud sa current nato nga sitwasyon sa Pilipinas, we are still living in this American era, American style. And that's why, as sa makita ninyo karon, there is so much corruption in the government because our institution, our government, was made in a way that it was easy for the Americans to continue extracting wealth and money from the Philippines. Because, the colonizers, they don't really go there. The truth about colonizers, they don't go there to make your country better. No. They go there to make their country better, to make their country richer in our expense, in the expense of the country that they colonize. And this history is always the same. For example, the Spanish, the American, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the British, all those colonizers' country, which is mostly European countries, they used, and now that's why I hate so much, I hate so much, when they call poor countries, like the Philippines, the India, any other like African countries, they call us third world country, or they call us poor country. Darling, we weren't poor. We are not a third world country. You colonizers make us poor. You made that name to us. You see, I hate it so much when these white people look at us, especially Filipino, nga ubos ra kay tanila, hugaw ra kay mo, stupida ra kayo mo, poor ra kayo mo. I hate when they look at us like this because, believe it or not, the Americans, the white people, the Americans, any country nga basta mga puti ang mga nagpuyo, they are very racist to us. They look down to us. They have very kanang low bitaw nga idea nato nga mga Pilipino. So mo nang maglagot kay kubitaw kay ang tinuod man good. We become poor because of them. We were not poor before sila naabot pre-colonial era, before ning mga Spanish naabot, before ning mga American niabot sa to ang country, we were very rich. We were very well-run society. Sila lang naabot nga gi-destroy nila everything and took everything for their own goods, for their own kanang kaayuhan. Okay, so let's discuss first ang pre-colonial era, meaning before niabot ang mga Espanyol sa Pilipinas. Okay, so during the pre-colonial era, Philippines was largely an egalitarian society. So ibig sabihin, ang Pilipinas before ang kaning mga conquistador na abot, we were an egalitarian society. Ibig sabihin, babae ug ang lalaki, we have equal status, rights, and we will both respected within the communities. Okay. And we were rich. We were rich. We were already doing trading. We were already doing business with our neighboring countries, like, like the China. So we were rich, and we were well-run country. Because back then man good, during pre-colonial time, lahi mong good ta, gagmay-gagmay nga to ang grupo, dili pareha karon nga usa ka Pilipinas magpaabot pa ta sa presidente nga mo yes or no, usa pa makalihok ang Cebu, usa pa makalihok ang Iloilo, ang Mindanao, unsa pa na diha, magpaabot pa ta sa dako, usa pa ta kalihok. Back then man good, during the pre-colonial time, we were like, for example, Cebu, we have our own government. We have our own way of running the island. And then, for example, ang Iloilo, nasa ilaha. Ang Luzon, nasa ilaha. Ang Mindanao, nasa ilaha. So it was clean and it was well run. Kay gagmay raman siya nga society. So, laga ni problema sa atong society, dire, okay, let's solve this. Kay kita-kita raman. So, mas dali siya solbon. Kaysa compare karon nga, kanang magpaabot pa ta sa presidente o kinsa pa to nga aprobahan ang kani, nga aprobahan ang kana, or solbon ang kani, solbon ang kana. We cannot move as one city. For example, sa Cebu, for example, sa tuwa sa Cebu, we have our own problems in economy and education and health and all that. We could not move because we need the approval of the government. We need the approval of the president or kinsa pa na dihang mga dagkong taing na sa babaw. Mao nang lisod kayo padaganon because of this. That's why then the corruption happens kay, daghan naman kay siya agian, usa pa siya moabot sa ubos. Usa pa gyud siya moabot sa kung unsa gyud problema ba. So that's why it's very bad kind of system ang naa nato karon. So, during this time, we had one of our kanang pinakadako o pinaka-importante nga mga leaders back then were women. They were called babaylan leaders. Yeah, babaylan comes from, I think ang word nato karon nga kababaihan or babay, sa mga Bisaya comes from this word babaylan, I believe. They were our spiritual leaders. They were our kanang healers, the keeper of the oral history. They held back then, kani nga mga leaders, mga babaylan leaders, they held immense political and religious power. So they were very important. The babaylan leaders were very important in our community, in our society during the pre-colonial time. Ang mga babaylan leaders nato was one of the keepers of oral history. When I first heard this, when I first saw this, because I was researching, pagkita na ko nga, for keepers of the oral history, what do you mean oral history? So ang kuha na nila, ang pasabutan nila is, kato sila ang mga ni-preserve sa community identity, sila ang mga ni-share o sila ang mga nag-transmit sa mga knowledge through ritual and art. They were the guardians of science and medicines. They also co-equal leadership with the datu. So, ang katong mga babaylan nato, like for example, sa tuwa karon, di ba, kasagaran sa tong mga mananambal is kanang daghang mga babae, di ba? Kung wanta kanang katong for example sa nila kanang mga anak bitaw, di ba? Mga anak ta naman tay before na ay midwife, and even karon ang mga midwife, di ba, kasagaran sa mga midwife karon mga babae. Pero back then, sa tawag ato nila mga mananabang, di ba, katong mga mananabang, they were mostly women, di ba? So this was one of our babaylan leaders. Kay sila man ang mga tao nga nag-keep sa idea, like unsaon man pag-ayo, unsaon pagtambal, unsaon pagpaagi, then pass it to the next generation. Sila barong anak o katong sa mga babae nga interesado pod sa anak nga area. So the babaylan leaders were really one of the most important kanang rules we had as a Filipina. And then, during pre-colonial time, we also had property rights. So ibig sabihin, we could own, we could buy properties. We could run business without the need of the approval or signature sa ato ang amahan or sa ato ang bana. So we were really free as a woman during pre-colonial time. We also had the right to divorce our husband, and we also had voice within the family. Na karon nga kasagana lang nato ang papa magbuot kung say mahitabo sa pamilya, ang papa nga na last words to everything and all that. And karon the worst is in the Philippines we don't have divorce. And that's still something kanang wait, I'm not sure because I read something, it says nga approve na daw ang divorce sa Pinas. But anyway, I'm not so sure yet. Let me know kung naaprubahan na ba because I'm not quite updated kung naaprubahan na ba or wala pa ba. But this is something na sa Pilipinas, we are also fighting a lot. Even though mana sila nga, ang Pilipinas is one of the countries in Asia nga mas equal right, na daw equal identity. Like, okay, pero that's not, the reality is not nothing, okay? We Filipinas are still struggling a lot and oppressed by men. So, especially divorce, we need divorce in the Philippines, we need. And then, we have the lineage. So, back then, ang kitang mga Pilipina, they were also traced. So, ang ibig sabihin is, katong mga babae ng mga anak was equally important as sons. So, ang mga babae ng anak was equally important sa mga lalaking anak. So, we also have the lineage. So, not really, for example, sa Spanish man good or like the British, or like the Chinese, for example. I don't know so much the history of China because I have not visited China. I don't know so much about their history. But I know, like, for example, in the UK, for example, like with the royalties, they only like the son. Because the son is the only kanang person nga makakontinue sa ilahang king, sa ilahang monarchy. Ang babay, dili pwede. Ang lalaki ra mahimong prince and mahimong king, hinana. So, sa Pilipinas, it was not like that. Sa Pilipinas, ang babae was as important as sa mga lalaki. That's why we were equally important. We were equally same status as the dato. So remember, ang dato nato, di ba, katong sila mga hari, di ba? So we had the same rights. Dili parehaanin nila nga ang babae, labay sa loyo, lalaki ray magpakahari-hari. Magpaka the best. Ang babae, close their mouth, cut their neck, throw them in the dungeon. Diba? And then we had the economical autonomy. So ibig sabihin, we can run businesses. We can work. We can really stand as a woman. That's why I would say, ladies, this pre-colonial era was like the golden age for us, Filipina. I don't know so much around the world. I don't know because the world is big. There are many cultures around the world. And I don't know so much their history, even though I have visited already 60 countries and 6 continents. Pero mostly man good, I've been to like Europe and South America and a bit of Asia, a bit of Africa like that, and a bit of like Middle East. But the world is big, and the history is so immense. So I'm not that updated, or like I don't have, like, for example, my brain don't have the capacity to remember everything yet. I hope in the future I would have a brain that has the capacity to remember every single cultural history in every country in the world. I hope we will have something in our brain that we just pang. Now take me to, for example, Nigeria history 1521 tam ta 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 ta, like that. I wish, but for now, I don't know that much cultural history around the world. But for us, Filipina, these were the golden age, the golden time nga mahimutang babae. Because during this time, and the present, it's such a bad time for us to become a woman. Yeah? So, yes, so imagine we could stand in our own feet. We were respected. We had the right to divorce. We have the right to own properties. We were very important leaders back then. But then, boom, a big boom, bomba nga naabot sa Pilipinas. And for so long, oh my God, ladies, from 1521 to 1898, this is more than 300 years that we women in the Philippines suffered in the hands of the Banyaga. But okay, ladies, for you not to feel so bad about ourselves, about yourself, for you not to feel so bad about yourself, for me not to feel so bad about myself during these times, kay dili naman sad kita ang nag-antos og maayo ani. A lot of countries in South America, which is one, I don't know if I would say one or the biggest, I would say probably the biggest continent nga giangkon, conquer sa Spaniards is the South America. And they also suffered a lot during these times. So, okay, that's why we, the Latinos and the Latinas and the Filipinos, we are like sisters. We can be sisters. We can be neighbors. Okay, we have a lot of similarities. I don't know about you ladies. I know a lot of Filipinos wants to go to Europe because, they kind of fancy. But if you want, well, also because Europe really, they have a very rich history as well. But if you are interested on like knowing the South America, you should really go because it's a very, should I compare South America to Europe as a continent, as important, as exciting? Probably yes, I would say, because Europe, they also have very unique and old and beautiful history, kanang singananing arts and kanang mga dali artifacts as well, but kanang mga mga monument nana, they also have a lot. But also in South America is a very beautiful continent to visit, ladies. So if you have the money and if you want to travel the world, don't forget South America. Before, I would say go to Europe, few countries, and then go to South America. So you have idea, instead of like what I did, I focus on Europe and then I went to South America. I think I'd rather maybe do like few countries in Europe, then few countries in South America, few countries in Asia, like that ba. Kaya para mas broad bitato ang knowledge. All right, now let's go into the Spanish era. The most sad, scary, frustrating, angry, fear, lahat na lang nga bati dinhi nga era. Lahat na lang nga bati dinhi nga era. Okay, so what happened when the Spanish arrived in the Philippines in 1521, and what happened during those over 300 years of colonization? So first, we women lose our legal identity. So they strip us down. Ilahang gitangtang ang tanan natong rights, ang tanan natong katungod. So we could not own property anymore. We could not run a business anymore. They now put all this under our husband and our father. So we could not easily, freely move as a woman. We were now put under men. So now men has to kanang sit on top of us and like, no, ikaw dirira ka, di ka pwede ani, di ka pwede ani, di ka pwede ani, dirira ka. Very bad. Next, this one. Ooh, ladies, this is actually very interesting. The Maria Clara ideal. I don't know if you remember, and until now, we still have a lot of, and what they call like, the Filipino traditional clothes. Like Filipino traditional clothes, they weren't so, I don't know, I have to clarify this at first, but I would say the Maria Clara clothes, I would not say those are like traditional Filipino clothes, because the Maria Clara idea was imposed by the Spaniards, by the Spanish. Like they wanted us Filipina, because before that we were this outspoken, ang mga Pilipina, before they arrived, the Filipina, ang mga kababaihan was very outspoken. They could express themselves. Kung unsay dili sila malipayon, unsay kapalagot nila, unsay dili nila ganahan, we were very free to express ourselves. And then we were very powerful. We were very important in our communities. They did not like that. The Spanish did not like that we Filipinas had that power. So then they imposed this Maria Clara idea. Who was the Maria Clara? Do you know? Kung back then, or hantod karon, kung anaon gani ka nga, kuan kay ka, mura kag si Maria Clara. Like, if you think nga, that's an kanang admiration or kanang sagana pagdaig sa imuha, now, then you should karon ayaw na pag-think nga kung giingnan kag mura kag si Maria Clara mo proud kasi mong kaugalingon ayaw na nagunaw na because actually being one of this Maria Clara ideal was not a good thing because they imposed this idea kay para ang mga babay will not trigger the man, will not challenge the man, will not ask question, so they want this very cute, very calm, very respectful kind of woman. Di sila ganahan atong babay nga Pilipina nga mga babay nga kamao mo hawak og kanang pinuti, kamao maligpas, kamao manglagot, di sila ganahan atong bayhana. They don't like those. Mahadlok sila ato because of course they need to control the country, so they don't want a woman like that. They want a woman who never say a thing. They want a woman nga kung unsay isulti sa laki, unsay isulti nila, mo follow ra. And they want a woman that will never question their idea, their opinion, kanang sa panadira, they don't want, So gusto nila ng quiet lang ka, kalmado lang ka. Di sila ganang babae nga manghagis, no. Kalmado lang ka. They don't like woman. Di ba kita nga mga babae during pre-colonial time, did you see our outfit? We were able to show our arms. We were able to show our legs like that. But then they arrived, they want to cover us with everything. Pero unsa gibuhat nila nato before ilatang gikaveran sa atong mga sanina, atong mga body parts, they raped us. They raped women. They killed children. They burn our stuff. You see how pathetic these people? Next, education limits. Oh, what happened? What happened when they did this education limits? Because back then, man God, when the Spanish arrives, before that, we had our own writings. We had our own writings, we had our own alphabets. But then, when the Spanish arrived, they changed it into Spanish. Pero ang ilang gibuhat ato, because they don't like the babaylan leaders, look at here, babaylan crackdown, this is very important. Look at this. And now, because they don't like those very strong, powerful women, the Filipino women, they changed the education and only limit it to men. And kasagaran sa dato nga time back then, ang church ra, ang simbahan ra mo ay kanang nagtudlo sa ilahang language. So kasagaran nato nga time ang makabasa og kanang mga Latin na ilahang Latin man ning ilahang kuan sa una kanang kuan ra katurang mga pari inana. So very few ra og katong mga dato ra gyud ang pipila ra gyud nga maka-eskwela. So they limit education. Next, the babaylan crackdown. Boom. They were triggered. They were triggered. I mean, they were scared. They were threatened. They were threatened by the babaylan leaders, the strong, powerful Filipina. They were threatened by these women. Then they cracked down. You know what they did? They leveled them. Ilahan islang gitawag ato ang mga babaylan leaders, ilang gipanghinganlan og bruha. Diba, you know what bruha? Bruha means kanang, witch. Diba? Kanang witches, kanang, sa Bisaya sa witch. Bruha, no? Basta kanang, witch ba? Kanang, atong gibutangan kanilang bati kay idea nga, kuan ka, kanang mura kag ungo, or kanang magsakay kag silihig, nga na kay black nga cow ba? Sa milayang Bisaya na, sa milayang terminology na. Bruha, dili na wakwak kay wakwak na may pako. Basta gitawag nila ang ato ang mga babaylan leaders ilang gitawag og bruha. Therefore ilaha silang gipangita, ilang giusab, ilang githreaten. Kung dili gani ka mo let go ng imong knowledge about plants, because plants are very powerful. We can poison them without them knowing. Diba? So that's why they were so threatened by these women. So they crack down, they punish them kung dili sila mo kanang tuman sa gusto sa mga Spanish. Ilaha silang ang uban gani ato gihikog jud, gipatay jud, kuan jud, gisunog jud nila. Kay they were very threatened by the babaylan leaders. So they kill the babaylan leaders. Ilang gipangita, ilang gipanish, ilang gipahilom. Kung di ka mo hilom patyon kanamo, inana sila kahadlok sa babaylan nato, sa babaylan leaders nato. O kani siya nga, manimbato akong balhibo, ladies, because I know we women are so powerful, but this, I don't want to say anything. Okay. Inhale, exhale. So, kabalo ba mo in the history sa Europe, there's I'm not sure na wala na kay ko kahinumdum. Wala na kay ko kahinumdum sa country nga ako naadtuan somewhere sa Europe. I'm not sure if it was Sweden or German, no, not Sweden, Germany or Spain or mas daghang country sa Europe nga ang mga witches pud nila, ilahang mga witches, ilahang mga bruha, ilaha pong gipangsunog, ilaha pong gisunog nila ha, like sa kuan gyud sa tunga-tunga jud kanang daghan ng mutan-aw kay kuan man gud to siya kanang gihimo nila nga example bitaw nga ikaw ha mag-practice ka og mga witches kanang mga tanom-tanom kanang mga herbal kanang mga unsa-unsa pa na dira mga spiritual unsa pa na dira mag-practice ka na ya masakpan ka namo sunugon ka namo pareha aning bayhana. So they use those as kanang panghadlok sa mga katawhan nga para dili na sila mag-practice ato itong mga spiritual nga gi-practice ato ang leaders. And ladies, this is not just, like I said, this is not just in the Philippines. It happens in Europe and anywhere in the world. Nga basta na colonizers nga moabot, they were very threatened sa ato ang spiritual gift ug sa ato ang katong mga herbal, mga inana. And then next, revolutionary resistance. So, Fia, you scared me. I'm filming. And then next, we have the revolutionary resistance. Okay, so of course, you know, many Filipinos and Filipinas were not happy of the situation ug ang mga ginabuhat sa mga Spaniards nato. So of course, there was a revolutionary resistance. And this is another story. Just this revolutionary resistance. And with this revolutionary resistance, we actually have one of the most famous women, and until now, we still use her name, Gabriela Silang. She was one of our most kanang powerful women nga ni fought nakipaglaban sa mga Espanyol. So now, American era. From 1898 to 1946, and I would say to the current situation, current time na to karon kay mao ra man gyapon yang ato ang sistema karon kuan man gyapon kayo very American style man gyapon kayo because like I said earlier they made it in a way nga it's easy for them to extract money and wealth from our country. So during this time, okay, it got better a little bit. We have now a universal education, and that is why now many of us Filipinos can understand and can speak American English because of this universal education that the American imposed when nidaog sila versus Spanish, kaya nagwarbiya ni sila. Na napildi man ng Spaniards, o American time na, so mo na ninahitabo. Then we have the suffrage movement. So this is actually very important kind of movement, even though this was not the first ever women kanang empowerment movement, pero dako kani siya epekto sa ato ang present nga history karon, because this was the movement nga ang mga babay they come as one, and it was well represented around the world, and it was well organized nga ang mga babae ato they wanted to have the right to vote and to have the right to own property. So para din sila manginahanglan sa perma, sa approval sa ilahang bana or sa ilahang amahan to acquire property. Okay? And then we have the 1937 plebiscite. So this one is actually very important sa ato sa Pilipinas, because without this the Filipina women could not vote, because even though this suffrage movement was like a world movement around the world, pero it was only kanang acknowledged sa US. So sa US, kung naka sa US nagpuyo, kung American ka, you got the right away. Pagkadaog ani nga movement katong naaprubahan ni siya sa US, right away kung naa ka sa US mainland nagpuyo, o kung puti ka, Amerikana ka, you had the right to vote na and to own properties. Pero sa Pilipinas, because Philippines back during that time was only like a territory, American territory, ang mga Filipina sa Pilipinas, kailangan pa jud mo fight sa tuang right in the Philippines para maka-vote for us to have the same rights kat ng under sa suffrage movement. So ang nahitabo sa Pilipinas, they create this ultimatum, plebiscite ultimatum in 1937. And the good thing is, it was actually very stressful, very challenging nga ultimatum nga ilang gihatag sa suffrage movement sa Pilipinas nga I think it was, kung ako na sayo, 2 years, gihatag nila nga 2 years nga kailangan silang mukuha of 300,000, kung ako na sayo, 300,000 ka votes sa mga babae nga para maaprubahan ang kaninga ultimatum para mudaog siya. And luckily, we passed that. I think we had over 400,000 votes from women nga ni pabor nga ani nga plebiscite 1937. So mauto, we Filipinas, we still needed to fight for that right. So nahitabo to siya, naaprubahan, then mauto nga nagkaroon na taog right to vote. And then we have the new profession. It came flooding. So the moment na aprubahan ni siya, 1937 plebiscite, the moment na maprubahan to siya, mauna to nga ang mga babae ng dagsa na, daghan na kay tag mga new professions ang mga babae na mga doctors, mga lawyers, mga teachers, may nana ba? Because of that because of this law, nga pwede na ta maka-eskwela, pwede na ta makakuha og mga trabaho nga same sa mga kalalakihan. So according sa World Economic Forum nga ang Pilipinas is one of the most equal gender countries in Asia. That's because, we have a lot of kanang mga babae man with high degrees and has jobs sa mga male dominant nga mga trabaho, pero ang realidad nato ladies, naagi hapoy gender gap, naagi hapoy mga limitations sa tong mga babae, daghan gihapon ladies. Even though mo na ilang ingon nato, pero ang realidad it's far from what they state here. And that's something we are going to discuss in our next video. So ladies, if you are very interested into finding your voice again and learning, regaining your knowledge, your power as a woman, then like this video and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you on my next video. Ciao for now.